what can games be? You know, it's a anthropological trait that we all play. We enjoy that. Many people say that we learn through play. When I watch my daughter, a 3-year-old now, I see that she learns the world through play. That's what she does. We all do. We all did it. We probably forget it. So it must be a good thing. Why? Because it's a safe haven to try out things without actual death. So it's a safe haven to actually simulate situations. And really, with games, learning is the drug. Now, Games for Change, to me, is about changing games as a medium. When you talk to people who are what we call hardcore gamers, you know, often they say, social games, oh well, you know, games for learning, I want to have fun. But if you look very closely, you will see that a lot of indie game developers these days, people who are on the fringe of, you know, blockbuster titles, that they are the ones who are reinventing, of course, the medium of video games in particular, or digital games, but that often they're including something into their gameplay that moves beyond the sheer aesthetics of the medium. That is probably very interesting for people who are interested in the social aspect of games. Changing games to people who really want to change games for change. It's a complicated sentence, sorry. I'll try to repeat it. People who are really wanting to change games for change and how should probably think about whether it's possible to innovate games for change with their game design. And I'll give you a couple of examples. So there's games out there like Journey, which is very popular with indie game developers, where you actually go on this pilgrimage in a, you know, desert environment. You slide in the desert, and it's awesome, you know. And there's this huge mountain in the back, and you more or less get it that you need to head towards that. And you solve these puzzles, and you're all doing this by yourself. You're very lonely in the desert. And all of a sudden, there's this other player. And the only way you can communicate with that player is with a chirpy sound, like thing. You know, you go, it's weird. And now, the interesting thing is, how do you figure out to communicate and to work with someone if you have limited means of communication? Now, you could dare say that this is a way of engaging people into cross-cultural communication. But it's not explicit. It's not like a moral finger where you go, oh, let's do this. You know, it's not. It's implicit. It's part of the gameplay. And there's many other games like Way by Chris Bell, which do the same thing. You need to solve puzzles by way of communicating with others. And it's a very interesting new game mechanic. And so it's really challenging the medium. It's changing games. And that's why it's a game changer. That, to me, is the beauty of what we can do. They mentioned that it is almost like an approval, not the only one, but a really good approval if you put a smile onto a player's face. I'd like to put a smile onto your faces when you go downstairs to the wonderful games arcade that's been designed by Chet Toprak of the Exertion Games Lab. Thank you, Chet, for doing this. Chet's also going to have a stint where he here afterwards to tell you what you can play, what's there on display. I'm also very happy to actually be able to announce something that's very exciting. Actually, it's an announcement that's not yet announced, and it's an unannouncement in that way. Is that logical? That's a negating thing to say, perhaps. Now, this is going to be announced at 9 o'clock today, but it got tweeted, so I can say it. The federal government of Australia is starting a new incentives program for game developers worth $20 million, running 3 years as of very soon. And yeah, It's not yet clear who will be eligible for that, but I would say that people like you here in the room should be closely watching what they will say. So that's a very good day for everyone in Australia, all game developers. So good news. I don't have any bad news, really. Good for us. I've got a couple of things that I need to tell you, though. I'm asked to say. First of all, also want to thank the speakers for being here. We've got 40 people, almost 40 people. It's a lot of people. We'll be on a tight schedule, but that's fine. I'd like you to enjoy the show. I'm asked to announce actually that Ivo Gormley would like to organize a community run, and he'll tell you more about what these runs are about. So check the event game, check the event game, because we're looking for a task for the run. So for example, I was organizing these things where joggers bring Christmas cards to older people, that kind of stuff. So think about a good task in the event game. Secondly, we'll have a swap of speakers. Adrian Cam will be speaking instead of Dean Groom, who cannot come today, because and we'll have a video recording instead that will be facilitated by Bronwyn Stuckey. And also, please remember that we will have a survey for you. Please let us know what you think or thought of the conference, if you're doing well, how we should improve. It's all subject to discussion, as I said in the beginning. And ultimately, I want to again remind you that in the very end, on day 2, there will be a call to action, and we are really, really happy to have more people come and think and play out with us what Games for Change could be here in the origin. Thank you very much for coming. Yes. So up next is Jeff Ramos, who came in yesterday, I think, from New York.
Yep.
He's not that jet lagged.
No, I woke up on time today.
So refreshed. So Jeff, hand over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for coming. I do have some notes on my phone, so if I'm looking at that, I'm not looking at text messages. First and foremost, it's pretty interesting to be the person with the accent in the room, so that's pretty great for me. Usually the other way around in New York City. So, I spent some time talking to a handful of people here yesterday, and it's always interesting for me to see what Games for Change is like in other places around the world. So just to give you some background about the organization in general. So, in 2004, a handful of philanthropists, filmmakers, educators, and designers were looking at the media landscape and wanted to figure out what's next. They wanted to figure out how to reach new audiences in ways that's never been done before. So slowly but surely, this small group of people got together, in groups of 5, 10, in people's apartments around New York City, slowly blossomed into an event where 50 people first got together in a very conference-like atmosphere just to talk about the state of using games as a medium to affect change in brand new ways. Throughout the years, it grew and grew, and in 2010, the leadership of Games for Change changed hands to 2 individuals, Asi Barak and Michelle Bird. Between them, their experience in game design, entrepreneurship, sponsorships, and their vast social network allowed us to change the entire Games for Change brand as a whole. So in 2010, we went through a massive rebranding of the entire organization. That's where we get this lovely logo that's going to be on the slide at some point in time. But we thought, now in 2010, the idea of using Games for Change as a medium to affect change just grew more and more at the time. So we had a very ambitious goal of making the 2010 Games for Change Festival, our very first go, be the biggest Games for Change festival ever. In that first year as a new organization, technically, we drew over 800 participants in New York City and 10,000 more online. And what did the slide say? So it was very interesting. And between Michelle and Asta, they wanted to figure out how do we move this idea forward. If Games for Change as an idea will be this thing that affects how games are seen all over the world, we can't do it alone. We can only do so much from New York City. So as mentioned before, we started licensing the chapters around the world. First in South Korea, then Latin America based in Brazil, Europe in France, and now today here in Australia and New Zealand. So each and every one of us on the Games for Change staff has gone to the very first festival, so I'm thankful enough to come to one. Of course, they sent me to the one that's the farthest away, but either way, it's been a pleasant experience so far, and I'm extremely thrilled to see what's going to happen over the next 2 days. So, let's see. So, last night I had spent time speaking with the organizer of the event and some of the speakers you held today, and I learned so much about a lot of the challenges Australia and New Zealand faces as a hub for using Games for Change as a way to affect change. And I'm excited to see how the next 2 days will unfold in terms of answering those questions for you and hopefully enlightening you and giving you hope that you can actually use Games for Change as a medium to do something incredible. And I think that bombshell that Stefan dropped about the 20 million is a powerful thing. And what I've learned from covering and learning from the organizers of every chapter is that each part of the world has their own unique way of working with local government, working with other philanthropists, game designers, and educators to make something amazing happen. And to see it happening here firsthand in Australia is extremely exciting, and I just hope and know that over the next 2 days, everyone's minds will be changed, and hopefully the energy that you'll feel will allow you to make something really great. And I think the organizers have put so much in place to make this a wonderful experience. And if you've never been to something like the Games for Change Festival, it's going to be an amazing 2 days, and I thank you all for being here. I've got another 5 minutes, so you can keep talking. So hold on a second. So, maybe... Yeah, so let's talk about one of the major projects we're doing in New York City. So we're working with the 2 Pulitzer Prize winners, one being the New York Times columnist Nicholas Kristof, and then his wife Cheryl Wu Dunn. So 2 years ago, Nicholas keynoted our festival, and it was really interesting to see, a world-class journalist saying to himself, I can only do so much as a journalist and as an author, and I know that to reach brand new audiences, I'm going to have to go where other people are. And even then, in 2009, he knew that games would be the place where we can affect change in a brand new way, to sort of reach beyond the choir, because people who are reading his book, people who are reading his columns in New York Times, they already get it. They already know how to affect change, and they're very motivated. But how do you reach these other people? How do you reach younger people? How do you reach people who are more engaged with technology? So in 2009, he talked about it and saw a better future for how he could affect change. During that time, he spoke with the organizers at Games for Change and said, listen, I'd love to figure out how we can actually do something with this idea. Fast forward to 2 years from now, last year, we started working closely with Nick and his team. They took their book, Half the Sky, which is a book that highlights the challenges of women and girls around the developing world in terms of, all the horrors they're facing and how they're actually using those forms of oppression to empower themselves, whether it's women in, fighting sex trafficking, whether it's women trying to empower other women and make entrepreneurs around the world. He thought to himself, how do we make this a bigger project? So he started working with a handful of different people from PBS, which is a public broadcasting system in America, to create a series of hour-long specials across 2 nights. There's a landmark media event, and he's working closely with us to create games. So actually around now we have officially launched a series of mobile games in the developing world, in Kenya and India. And in affecting change, what we've learned is that you need to speak to an audience in a medium that they understand. So if you all remember those mobile phones that used to have those old feature phones that had a few kind of apps on them, in those developing worlds, those are the most powerful forms of communication and connecting with people. Every household, almost every single household has one, and everyone uses them. So that device is integral to the landscape of what these developing worlds are like. So we've just launched 3 different games there, and so far we're doing the research, which is hopefully something we'll touch upon. You can't just make great games, you also have to see how well they're performing. What we're working on right now is a series of Facebook games for the Western audiences, and Unfortunately, I don't have any slides, but it looks gorgeous, and we have them on the gamesforchange.org website. You can learn more about them. But it's the same idea of taking where most people are. And as you mentioned, a handful of people playing games now are everybody. It's people are playing Facebook games, and the makeup of those people are quite different. But you know, when you're playing something like Farmville, and you're raising a virtual goat, that doesn't do anything for the world other than giving you something to do for 10 seconds. So with the with the Half the Sky Facebook game, what we're doing is we're working with dozens upon dozens of nonprofits and non-governmental organizations around the world to actually affect change in a way that feels relevant. So when you buy a virtual goat in the Half the Sky Facebook game, you're actually donating a real goat through Heifer International, which is an organization that actually uses livestock to empower small communities. So everything you do in the game actually has real, relevant impact in the way that you can actually see as opposed to just simply doing. So that will launch sometime in early 2013, but it's an exciting project, and that's one of the landmarks that we're working on here in the United States. Every country that I've spoken with, they are doing amazing things. I know in South Korea, they're working really well with the local government, and the local government's really backing these Games for Change projects. Their digital media community is very powerful, and they're doing a lot of amazing things. In Latin America, they're focusing so much on how do we bring the universities and the startup community together to create brand new products and services. In France, I've seen some extremely innovative design projects coming from individuals in the independent game space. And over the next 2 days, I'm excited to see what I can tell everyone in New York that Australia is doing. So hopefully, we'll have a lot of great stuff to see. So this is my second goodbye, and thank you.
Thank you. Now, we're going to avoid the huge talk festa because we really all want to hear the star of the show here, which is Heather. So just a few quick things. I'm really thankful to RMIT and their wonderful foresight and investment in Games for Change and the long-term development of our industry. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts, because this is the beginnings of an amazing community in the region. So once again, thank you very much. I've enjoyed being on the journey with Stefan, and this is just the beginning of the next one, and we're really truly honoured once again to have you as part of that as well. I'll quickly just go through part of the game that we're playing as part of the overall learning experience. But first of all, my daughter this morning said, "Why are you doing this? Why are you getting up 6 in the morning this past week?" and all this kind of stuff. And I thought very hard about it, and 3 words came to mind. The first one was inspiration. I was fortunate enough, RMIT sent me to New York to spend time with Jeff and the team for a month to learn the ropes about what is actually happening in New York, and I was just truly astounded because it was a global community that met there, and I was totally humbled by not only the developers there, but the community. There were teachers, there were doctors, there were nurses. Everybody came to Games for Change with a problem that they couldn't solve the existing tools and mental models that they had. And they were there to learn a different way to solve really fundamental problems in our society. So, and these are wonderful things, you know, participation in communities, and neglected children, and loneliness for older people, and fitness and health, all amazing things that are all about our community. So that's, to me, was inspiration. I was inspired by these people, and whatever I can do to be part of helping that awesomeness be spread throughout the world, I'm there. The other one I said to her is passion. I'm passionate about learning. I'm passionate about people who want to change the world. And that leads me to the third one, which was love, because it's basically about our love for our families, our communities, and our worlds generally is the reason why we're doing this. I originally started with games because it was my son was misdiagnosed with a learning difficulty. And it was only through the power of games, playing 6 months of Civilization, that completely changed his attitude towards learning. And now he's in Year 10 and doing VCE maths. So, you know, I will die on my sword when it comes to what games can do for people to change our lives. And this is why I'm working with Stefan and RMIT to actually enable this for our region. So, back to our amazing program for the next 2 days. I've sort of been whining the last couple of weeks of saying, I wish I was a participant here, because it's an amazing program. I'll have Chad come up afterwards to talk about the amazing Games Arcade downstairs. But what we're doing here, we've established a prototype app for you to play with. It's called the City Challenge Quests, and we've got the City of Melbourne's Knowledge Week. We came up with 3 basic questions. When you're in the Games Arcade, you'll see the knowledge tree that's downstairs. Now, we started the research about a month ago to see what's important to the City of Melbourne. So we narrowed it down to, and this is for different workshops that were sitting in the City of Melbourne's offices for a while, and lots of external workshops that we did as well. And 3 things came to mind. How do you make Melbourne a knowledge city? How do you make Melbourne a more playful city? And how do you make Melbourne a more entrepreneurial city? Now, these are the 3 questions that we've got in the app. So what we'd like you to do after each speaker, if you've been inspired by something that they've said, pop into the app, give us your views. And what the City of Melbourne will do is just collate that information and actually feed it back to the decision makers in terms of this is what the public is saying about our wonderful city and how we can actually implement that. So rather than being a passive participant, be an active one. Go down into the downstairs. We know we've seen all the MRI scans of brains on games, so neurons keep firing. It inspires us into action, and this is what we're here for, to touch our passions, to get our minds, get our bodies going, because this is inspiring a different form of thinking, a different form of problem solving, and that's just what we need to face the challenges that we have as a community and as a global community over the decades to come. So enough from me. Thank you for being here, and over to Chad to talk about the wonderful games downstairs.
Hello everyone, hope you're having a good day so far. My name is Chad, I'm the curator of the Games Arcade downstairs, and I just wanted to talk to you about what kind of games we have. We have over 20 hand-picked and curated games downstairs that come from all over the world, both locally here around Australia and overseas from places like Singapore, Hong Kong, United States, or even Copenhagen. I made sure we had a broad selection of games, making sure we touch up on things like learning and education, meaningful games that kind of get you thinking about social problems and situations that are perhaps situated in the city, or just playful games that get people smiling. We wanted to make sure that we had not only games that are entertaining, but also games that get people thinking about things like where we play or who we play with, because these questions are quite important. One thing that we find is the medium itself is constantly changing and constantly, rapidly expanding, and we have to think about things like, who are our target audiences, or who play these games, or where are they played, or with whom they're played. So we have a couple of games downstairs that address these sort of things, and I definitely encourage you all to go downstairs, play them all, and interact with as many different types of people we have down there. We have a great team of game runners. Make sure you say hi to them, and if you have any questions, just ask them. They know everything about the games down there. And yeah, most of all, just have fun, because the games are about fun. Games are about playing and learning. So make sure you go down there and just have fun. I think that's all from me. Brilliant. Thank you.